Hello and welcome to Clickbait and to another look at an unusual, less well known roll of film, because this is the magical thing about the resurgence in analogue photography. There are so many new films coming onto the market, things we haven't seen for a long time, things we haven't seen before. And today we're looking at this one, Mr. Negative 700S, which is a new tungsten balanced negative film, C41 process, colour negative. Fantastic. Now, a quick refresher for those of you who've not had to deal with this kind of stuff before. Back in the good old days, you couldn't just stick any roll of film into a camera and go and shoot under any light source, because every different light source has got a different colour temperature. Daylight is ever so slightly yellow and it's rated at about 5,000 kelvins or K. Flash photography or flashlight is a tiny bit whiter and bluer, and that's 5,500 to 6,000 K. Then you've got your other light sources. You've got your fluorescent tubes, which are around 3,000 K, but they photographers are basically weird greeny hue. And then further down the spectrum, we've got our tungsten lighting, which is your old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs, which are around sort of 2,500 to 3,000 K, and they come out very orangey, very dark yellow if you photograph anything under those kind of lights with a regular daylight balanced film. Because what the manufacturers would do, they would change the chemistry and the backing of the film to suit the light source that you're anticipating shooting under. So if you shoot daylight balanced film in tungsten light, it comes out very heavily yellow. So what you would do in the olden days, if you weren't going to use a strong enough flash to overpower the tungsten, you would go and use a tungsten balanced film, and your tungsten shot images would then come out looking as if they were daylight, even though they were under tungsten. I hope you're following, it's not too complicated, because that was the science bit. Now this I got from Analog Wonderland. There's a link in the description to the shop over there. It's not the cheapest roll of film in the world, £18 for 36 shots, so at least you get a full roll of film out of it. But I wanted to see what it was like. I haven't shot tungsten film in a really long time, so I stuck it into my good old trusty Minolta Dynax 7000i, or a Maxim if you're over in America. This is a brilliant camera and one that I really trust for doing film tests with, because the focusing's spot on and the light meter is bob on as well. So you know you're going to get quality results out of it. Now, looking at the pictures, I've not done any kind of tweaking. So these are commercial scans, they're the most basic of colour balance. All I've done to a couple of them is just change the crop a tiny bit where I've got it on the wonk a tiny bit, and just brightened them up in a couple of cases where it was a little bit dark. So I'm going to talk you through what I found and what it was like shooting this, because it was interesting. But the unexpected problem I found with it wasn't shooting under tungsten lighting conditions. It was actually finding tungsten lighting conditions, because so many lights these days in domestic, industrial, commercial, everywhere situations are now LED and no daylight balanced, which is great for ordinary photography. If shooting on your iPhone or a digital camera, it will correct it anyway, but it just makes it, well, much easier. But when you want to try and test a roll of tungsten, it's surprisingly hard to find. So there are two elements to this test. First of all, shooting in the dark. This is 800 ASA or ISO rated, which means you can shoot in reasonably dark conditions. It's not like mega dark, and not like your old Ektar 3200 kind of stuff, which you can always shoot in down a coal mine. But you can shoot in the evening and hand hold it steadily, which is good. And the second thing is shooting in daylight, because obviously if you shoot a daylight balanced film in tungsten, you get the yellow cast. If you shoot a tungsten balanced film in daylight, you should expect to get a blue cast, and I wondered how strong an effect that would be. So I wanted to put that to the test as well, without using a correcting filter, because you can use a yellow or blue correcting filter to shoot daylight or tungsten film under the opposite lighting source. But I didn't do that. I just wanted to see what it would look like. So we went up to London, we went on a ship, we went and shot it in daytime, and we shot it under a variety of other lighting conditions as well, just to see. So we shot it in some lights where I just didn't know what the light source was, and it was a real mixture. And well, let's have a look and see what we found. So my first shot of the day was in London, up near the O2, and I shot it outside in really quite a nice day, quite a blue sky situation. It was actually a very deep blue sky, looked very summery indeed. However, what I was looking at on the screen here, it looks quite a cold, almost wintry kind of a day here. So it was not what I expected at all. Obviously being ISO 800, I was shooting at quite fast shutter speed and getting quite strong highlights in the afternoon sun. But that was an interesting result. I didn't really expect it. I thought it was going to be more of a striking blue than that. But you know, that was interesting. Heading into London though, we then stopped and got ourselves some hot chocolate, because why wouldn't you? Amazing little chocolate shop in Brick Lane. This is lit using an interesting mixture of ambient light from outside through big plate glass windows, so a certain element of blue daylight, but then we've also got tungsten lights and LED lights in this mixture as well. And we've got a really nice, well, fairly balanced light mix here, it turns out. I'll add that we've got quite nice grain as well for 800 ASA film. So I always call it ASA, it should be ISO, shouldn't it? It's actually rather nice. It's actually pretty crisp. I did grab a couple of other shots of this guy. Yeah, he was working hard. This is, incidentally, if you're after the best hot chocolate in London, head to, I think it's called Dark Sugars on Brick Lane. Their hot chocolate is immense. You get hot chocolate and then you get a mixture of all different kinds of chocolate chopped up and melted into it. Oh, fantastic. Not too expensive either, considering that much chocolate's in there. But anyway, you can see from the blur in his hands how low of a shutter speed I'm hand holding this at. I think it must have been about 20th or a 30th of a second or so. But again, lots of detail, and it looks really natural considering we were indoors under a mixture of artificial light, so that was quite impressive. I'll give them a face check if you like. Those chocolates are incredible. But you can see still in the background where this is mostly artificially lit in the background of the photo, it looks really natural. The colours are just really, really nice. Heading into London, we went into like a dive bar type place where it's all completely artificially lit. I think it was tungsten light. And I thought a good test of this was going to be the hanging lamps and this big backlit board, which I think is going to be kind of a fluorescent light in the back of that. So I was expecting to get some kind of green effect. And we got a little bit of green in the big signboard, but the overall effect is actually, again, quite natural. We've got some red hues from the interesting ambient lighting in the building itself, but where you can see the glow from the interior lights, it's quite a dark, dingy situation and the cameras wind up metering off this board. It's very atmospheric, and again, where you can see there is light on the background, it is still the right kind of colour balance. It's looking natural, which is brilliant. This particular shot, we've got lots more illumination, mostly coming out of that big backlit sign, and we've got the other coloured lights elsewhere in the room, giving it a bit more pizzazz, a bit more atmosphere. But you can see wherever there's any kind of light, it looks really nice. It's daylight balanced again, it's brilliant. And the overall shot of the place, the strongest colour cast really is from the ambient red lighting they've put up in the bar. Walking out into the night itself, this is another test. I think we've got sodium lights in this one as well as incandescent lights and other things. We have got a little bit of a yellow cast, but really it's still working. We've got a bit of green from the fluorescence. Again, you can see how slow the shutter speed has gone down to, so forgive any shake because this is handheld again. It works. I think these are sodium lights. I'm not quite sure what colour temperature sodium lights are, but they do give that interesting red glow. Heading home on the tube, again, I'm assuming these are fluorescent tubes in the top of this carriage, or possibly LED. But we've got, again, a nice balance. There's a little hint of blue. It does look like we've shot in the dark, but under daylight conditions. So really, really very versatile film here. Focusing on the actual hanging straps and the lighting area. Again, it's not colour casted at all. It's really, really good. It just really does open up your nighttime opportunities. Saying goodbye to the train, even the platform looks like it's been lit with daylight. We've not got any kind of colour casting going off at all. Really, very useful indeed. And back at the O2, but this time in the dark when it's actually intended for, do a little bit of handheld slow shutter speed stuff. We've got this cable car. And again, a huge mixture of lighting. This is definitely fluorescent in here with a strong green cast. But we've also got coloured with purple, ambient lighting for effect. We've got the other lights around, and there's a ton of detail. And going into a slower shutter speed still, got more blur in here. Where we're in this area at the bottom where it is almost certainly incandescent lights, we've got basically pure white daylight conditions. It is fantastic. Now, because I was struggling to find any genuinely good tungsten lighting conditions, I thought I'd head into Maidstone, where I thought I would find some street lighting, some shop fronts that might be tungsten lit. I shot the front of the good old Crown Vic because that's got tungsten incandescent lights in the front of it, and what a way to find out you're missing a light bulb. But yeah, this is just ambient night street, just to sort of test, again, the colour cast. That's what I'm really looking for, the colour cast and the grain. This was a late night cafe that was open, and you can see inside there, looking through the window, it is daylight balanced again. We've not got that yellow or green cast you get from artificial lighting. It looks natural, which is just perfect. We're going for a bit of atmosphere, walking around the streets. Again, same again, we've got the incandescent lights outside this pub. It gives it just a slightly nice yellow glow to it. You can see where it's fluorescent lit further up and you've got the green glowing, but that's all good. Now moving back to the street where we parked the car, Zizi have got a lot of incandescent light bulbs all across the front, giving it a little bit of ambient light. Now we were underexposing a bit at this point because it was very dark and the street lights weren't on. So the shop front itself is dark and just a bit of light coming out from inside the windows. But this shot I really do like. What I did, park the car across the street and then rest the camera on the roof, so we've got the reflections of the lights in the paintwork of the car's roof, and it gives it a bit of depth and a bit of interest, a bit of out of focus something in the foreground. And so for a late night shoot, this 800 ISO, it works really well. Weirdly though, these bulbs, because they're hot spots, they have come out really red. I was surprised how red they were. Now also shooting indoors, this is another sort of bar type situation. Bars seem to be the best place to find incandescent bulbs these days. This is shooting through a screen with a mixture of little glass panels in there. It's given a bit of a nice yellow glow. So overall, where you're looking down on the people, they're nicely colour balanced really well, so they look natural. But wherever you see a light in the ceiling, it's gone red again. I'm curious about this little effect. Going for a more fancy type bar, we've got exactly the same situation again. The barman, the bar itself, the bottles are all looking beautifully colour balanced there. They're daylight balanced, and you can see the white highlights on the bottles and the glasses all looks really good. However, the light strips themselves, where they get to the intense points, the high spots, going red again. So that's an interesting thing. Down here under the bar you can see the lights. The light strips are bright red. So I wonder if those are LEDs that are chucking out the extra. Then I found myself a nice wet deck to walk out on as well. This is an interesting look because I'm not quite sure, I'm not 100% sure what these light sources are, but it's handled it really well, considering it's basically film emulsion. It's not like a digital camera which is doing clever things in trying to analyse the light and work out the white point. This is just recording what it sees, and it seems to have an extremely good latitude for getting, well, a solid sort of midpoint or grey point, if you like, to get the white balance right. So these two shots out on a deck, apart from the red highlights from the lamps themselves, have come out really well also. A couple more pictures I thought were quite interesting. This is through an open door into the back of a kitchen, and those are generally fluorescent lit, and even that greenery is toned down. It's got a hint of blue into it. It still looks fairly daylighty, and I'm sure that was a fluorescent lit room. You just see the hint of the guy's white shirt just there, the white crockery. It's all sort of correctly balanced pretty much, so I'm really quite impressed with that. And the final shot to share, just as I was finishing the roll-off, the Birdman of Tunbridge Wells. He was feeding his pigeons and I just grabbed the camera because it's the only camera I had at the time. The lady behind him doesn't look too happy to be swarmed by pigeons, but he's having a great time chucking the seed to the birds. And this is another bright day. We've got a little bit of reflection. I think it's a reflection off this chrome of a post that's refracting into the lens there. That's unrelated, but I expected this to be strong blue again, like the first shot on the roll. This last shot I thought was going to be very heavily blue as well, but honestly, if I didn't know that was tungsten balanced film, I'd be very surprised to learn that, to be perfectly honest. So there we go, Mr. Negative 700S tungsten balanced film. I would say it's one of the most versatile rolls of film I've shot in a while, because in virtually every situation we came up against, it brought out a really nicely balanced image. So in underground dive bar, on board a ship, on a street, in daylight and in the dark, it seems happy in pretty much any situation you throw at it. This does seem to be a really good film for just heading off into the night and clicking away in virtually any situation, and it seems to be able to handle, as I say, fluorescent, LED, incandescent, all of them seem to be within its grasp. Clicking through all these different lighting situations, it has handled it really well. It's got lovely grain, it's got lots of definition, and the colours I'm just so impressed with. Even in really difficult situations like this band performing on a stage in a virtually dark room, apart from the highlights on them, it's done brilliant. You can just about pick out the drummer. You've virtually lost the pianist, but his hands are nice and clear. It's done so well. I'm really very, very impressed indeed with the versatility of this. I was expecting it to be far more finicky. I was thinking it was going to be really tricky. If I shot it in daytime, it was going to look bizarre, like a special effects film, and shooting in the dark, it had to be just purely incandescent tungsten lights, or else it was going to be horrible casts. But this, which I think is a real mixture of lights on this particular shot, it just goes to show what a versatile, happy film it is. 800 ASA, great for the nighttime. Tungsten balanced, great for shooting under lighting. Next time I'm shooting anything in the dark without flash, I think this is what I'll be sticking in the camera, because this is really, really useful. If you fancy a roll of this, follow the link to Analog Wonderland in the description below. If you sign up using my link, we both get some points towards free film in the future, which is nice. And search some 700S, and hopefully they'll have some in stock, because this is good stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please consider hitting like and, of course, subscribe for lots more film reviews, camera reviews and adventures with photography. Thank you for watching and goodbye.